Every morning, I gave a few dollars to a homeless elderly woman. One day, she grabbed my wrist tightly and said, "Don't go home tonight." I didn't understand, but I listened anyway. And the next morning, when I saw the news on TV, I stood frozen in shock. When I discovered the truth, I realized the person behind all of this was the one I had loved most in this world. Before I tell you what happened next, comment below. Where are you watching this from? Let me know your city or country. Every morning at 8:15, I walk the same route down from my Victorian house on Russian Hill to Henderson's Books on Columbus Avenue. The October fog rolled in thick off the bay, turning the steep streets into something out of a dream. San Francisco does that to you, makes you feel like you're living in someone else's story. This particular Tuesday morning, the fog was heavier than usual. It clung to the cable cars as they rattled past their bells, cutting through the mist. The smell of espresso drifted from Mama Victoria's, the Italian cafe on the corner. Old Yeppe was already out front, wiping down tables, muttering in Italian about the weather. I turned onto Columbus, and that's when I saw her. Eleanor Hayes sat exactly where she always sat on the corner of Columbus and Broadway, with her back against the brick wall of the old building. She'd been there for as long as I could remember, 6 months now since I first started stopping. Most people walked past her like she was invisible. Hell, for 30 years she probably had been. She never asked for anything, never held out a cup, or made eye contact with the morning commuters. She just existed there patient, as the fog itself, hands folded neatly in her lap, like she was waiting for a bus that would never come. "Morning, Eleanor," I said, reaching into my wallet. She looked up at me, pale blue eyes that usually focused somewhere in the middle distance. But this morning something was different. Her eyes were clear, sharp, fixed on mine, with an intensity that made my hand freeze. Before I could even pull out the $10 bill, her fingers wrapped around my wrist. Not gently hard. Her grip surprisingly strong for a woman her age, like she was trying to anchor me to the sidewalk. "Don't go home tonight." Her voice was barely above a whisper, but there was an urgency in it that made my blood run cold. "Eleanor, what? Promise me." Her grip tightened. "Promise me you won't go home tonight. Stay somewhere else. Anywhere else." I tried to pull back, but she held on. The morning crowd flowed around us like water around stones. Office workers with coffee cups, students with backpacks, tourists squinting at phones. Nobody even glanced our way. Just another crazy homeless woman bothering a pedestrian. But I saw her. Really saw her. And what I saw scared the hell out of me. This wasn't the same Eleanor who spent most mornings staring at nothing, who sometimes talked to herself in fragments. This was someone else, someone terrified, someone desperate. "Eleanor, I don't understand." "What's going on? Promise me." Her voice cracked. "Please." The rational part of my brain, the part that had run a successful bookstore for 15 years, told me this was ridiculous. Eleanor had mental health issues. Everyone knew that. Maybe this was an episode. But there was another part of me. Something deeper than logic. Something that remembered how Eleanor had never once acted like this before. How in 6 months she'd never grabbed me, never demanded anything, never looked at me, with eyes that clear and that afraid. "Okay," I heard myself saying, "Okay, Eleanor, I promise, I won't go home tonight." The moment the words left my mouth, she released my wrist. Her hands returned to their usual position, folded neatly in her lap. But her eyes stayed on mine for another heartbeat, and I could see tears forming at the corners. "Thank you," she whispered. Then she looked away, and just like that, the fog seemed to roll back in behind her eyes. She was gone again. Not physically, but wherever she'd been a moment ago, whatever clarity had possessed her, it had vanished. I stood there for a moment, rubbing my wrist where her fingers had pressed. The morning commuters kept flowing past. The cable car bell rang. Yeppe muttered about the fog. Everything was normal. Everything except the feeling in my gut that told me nothing would ever be normal again. I turned to walk toward the bookstore. My keys heavy in my pocket, my mind already racing. What the hell had just happened? Why would Eleanor? That's when I heard it. So quiet I almost missed it. Eleanor talking to herself the way she sometimes did. Sarah would want me to save you. I stopped, turned around. Eleanor whose? But she was sitting there with her hands folded, eyes distant, staring at something only she could see. Wherever she'd been, whatever had possessed her with that desperate clarity, it was gone. I walked away, the fog closing in behind me, that name echoing in my head. Sarah. Who the hell was Sarah? The key stuck in the lock of Henderson's books like it always did. I jiggled it twice before the mechanism gave way. Flipped on the light, started the coffee maker. Everything normal, everything routine. Except I kept seeing Eleanor's fingers wrapped around my wrist. Sir, excuse me. I blinked. A woman in a navy pica coat stood at the counter, holding up 3 crumpled bills. That you gave me $3 back instead of 13, she said. I looked down at the register. She was right. Second time today, I'd made that mistake. I'm so sorry. I fumbled through the drawer, found the right change. Really sorry. She took the money without a word and left. The bell chimed her disapproval. I stood there staring at the register, trying to remember what I'd been doing. The numbers blurred together like a language I'd forgotten how to read. Don't go home tonight. Eleanor's voice kept echoing. 6 months I'd known her. 6 months of brief exchanges and $10 bills. She'd never given me advice about anything, barely spoke more than a few words. But this morning she'd grabbed my wrist like someone trying to pull me back from a cliff. I poured coffee I didn't want and tried to focus on inventory. Tuesday afternoons were usually slow, predictable. Nothing about today felt predictable. The coffee tasted like ash. I set it down and stared out the window at Columbus Avenue, watching people walk past. Normal people. People whose lives weren't suddenly falling apart at the seams. That's when the memories started flooding back. Jennifer 2 years ago, coming home early from Sacramento to find her Mercedes in the garage when she'd said she had a conference in Oakland. Walking upstairs, the bedroom door open, I'd stood there frozen in my own hallway, watching my wife of 15 years with someone I'd never seen before. When she finally noticed me, she didn't scream or scramble for sheets, just looked at me with cold calculation. Luke, she'd said. Just my name, like I was the one in the wrong room. We divorced a year ago. I got this bookstore in the small Victorian on Russian Hill. She got the Pacific Heights house and half of everything else. Fair trade, I'd thought. I got my peace of mind back. But Jennifer had made sure I lost something more valuable. Jason, my son, had been 26, then already thin in that way that told you drugs had gotten their hooks in deep. He wouldn't look at me during the proceedings. Jennifer had spent months poisoning him against me. You're a terrible father, she'd told me the day the papers were signed. The Jason doesn't want to see you. Don't call him. I'd tried anyway. Letters, texts, voicemails, nothing. He'd cut me off completely. The college kid came in looking for textbooks. I handed him the wrong one twice. You okay, man? He asked. Yeah, just long day. The afternoon dragged on, and then I remembered. 2 weeks ago, Jason showing up at the bookstore out of nowhere. After 18 months of silence there, he was gaunt, hollow-eyed, jittery. Daddy'd said, I was wondering, do you still have that life insurance policy? The big one. The question had been so strange, so out of context. What kind of question is that, Jason? Just curious. His eyes darted around, never meeting mine. After the divorce and everything, you're still covered, right? For like a lot. I told him, yes, 1.2 million. Jennifer had insisted on it during the good years. That's good, he'd said. And there had been something in his voice that should have set off alarm bells. That's really good, Dad. Now, standing in my empty bookstore with Eleanor's warning echoing and my son's strange question replaying like a broken record, the pieces started falling into place. The insurance question, Eleanor's desperate warning, Jason's bloodshot eyes and nervous energy, Jennifer's cold calculation during the affair, the way she'd systematically turned Jason against me. My hands started shaking. Don't go home tonight. Oh God, I whispered to the empty store. I didn't want to see the picture forming in my mind, but I couldn't look away anymore. Pieces I didn't even know existed were coming together, and they were painting something horrible, something unthinkable, my own son, my own house. 1.2 million reasons. By 5:30, I couldn't take it anymore. I flipped the sign on the door to closed and stood there in the middle of my bookstore with my heart hammering like it was trying to break free. My own son, my own house, 1.2 million. The thought kept circling back, a vulture I couldn't shake. Every time I tried to examine it, my brain rebelled. No, not possible. Not Jason. I taught him to ride a bike, helped him with homework. He was my kid. But then I remembered his eyes 2 weeks ago. The way they darted around like he was looking for exits. The tremor in his hands. And I remembered Eleanor this morning. The strength in her grip. The terror in her voice. Don't go home tonight. I pulled out my phone and stared at it. This was crazy. I was being paranoid, taking advice from a homeless woman with mental health issues, making decisions based on half-formed conspiracy theories. But what if I was right? What if I went home tonight and I couldn't finish the thought? I scrolled to D. Patricia Daniels, my neighbor for 3 years, the kind of woman who noticed everything when your lights were on, when your car was in the driveway, when your newspaper piled up. Tonight that vigilance might save my life. Luke? Her voice had that worried edge. Everything okay? Hi, Mrs. Daniels. Yeah, everything's fine. I just wanted to let you know I'm going to be out of town for a couple days. Business trip. Pause. Oh, where are you going? I hadn't thought that far ahead. Sacramento Book Fair. At this time of year, Jesus the woman should have been a detective. Yeah, weird timing. But anyway, could you keep an eye on the house? Make sure nobody bothers it. Of course, honey. You sound stressed. You sure everything's all right? Just work stuff. Thanks, Mrs. Daniels. Really appreciate it. I hung up before she could ask more questions and stood there in the growing darkness. Through the windows, Columbus Avenue was settling into evening. The fog rolled in thicker turning street lights into fuzzy halos. A cable car rattled past its bell, muffled by the mist. San Francisco had never felt more foreign. I walked to the back room and pulled out the old sleeping bag from behind boxes of unshelved books, carried it to the front office where the vintage couch sat, more decorative than comfortable, but it would do. Because I wasn't going home tonight. I sat down and tried to convince myself I was making the right decision. Tried to quiet the voice saying I was overreacting, being paranoid. But then I thought about Eleanor's face this morning. The desperation when she'd said, "Promise me," like my life depended on it. What if it did? The hours crawled by like wounded animals. I tried to read, but the words might as well have been hieroglyphics. I tried browsing my phone, but everything felt trivial. Cat videos and news articles from people whose biggest worry was dinner. Nobody else was sitting in a dark bookstore at Nine's Honor, hiding from their own house, because a homeless woman had issued a warning. Nobody else was wondering if their own son wanted them dead. Around 10, I turned off all the lights, except the small desk lamp. The bookstore took on a different character, and darkness, rows of shelves like silent sentinels, the smell of old paper more pronounced. Every creak made me jump. Every passing car made my pulse spike. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through photos. Found one from 5 years ago. Jason's 23rd birthday. Before the drugs, before the divorce, before everything fell apart. He was smiling in that picture. Really smiling, with his arm around my shoulder and his eyes bright and clear. That was my son. That boy who'd loved baseball and science fiction and terrible puns. When had I stopped being his hero? I put the phone away before I could spiral further, and laid down on the couch, sleeping bag pulled to my chin. Outside, the fog pressed against the windows. The streetlights barely penetrated it now. The city had disappeared into gray nothing. I closed my eyes, but sleep wouldn't come. My mind kept racing. Eleanor's warning, Jason's question, Jennifer's cold eyes, the insurance policy, the pieces that shouldn't fit, but somehow did. Around midnight, I gave up and just lay there in darkness, staring at the ceiling, watching occasional headlights sweep across the plaster like searchlights looking for something lost. Am I crazy? I thought hiding in my own bookstore because a homeless woman told me not to go home. But then I remembered her voice this morning. Not confused and distant, but sharp and clear. The one that had said, "Promise me," like she could see something I couldn't. What if she's right? The hours ticked by. 1 hour 0 a.m. 2 hours 0 a.m. I dozed a little. Woke, dozed again. The fog outside glowed faintly with the city's reflected light. Everything felt surreal, suspended, like I was existing in some pocket dimension between my normal life and something darker. At 2:47 in the morning, my phone shattered the silence. The ringtone cut through the quiet like a scream. I grabbed it off the desk, heart already racing, unknown number. But I knew, even before I answered, I knew. Mr. Henderson. A man's voice, professional, controlled, the kind that's delivered bad news before. This is the San Francisco Fire Department. There's been an explosion at your residence on Russian Hill. The words hit like a physical blow. The phone slipped in my grip. What, it came out strangled. What did you say? An explosion, sir, at your address on Jones Street. We need you to come to the scene immediately. Are you injured? We were told you might have been inside. No. My voice sounded far away. No, I'm not there. I'm at my bookstore. Thank God. There was genuine relief in his voice. We'll need to speak with you when you arrive. Can you get here safely? Yes, I'm coming. I ended the call and sat there on the couch, phone still in my hand, staring at nothing. Eleanor had been right. My house had exploded. If I'd gone home tonight, if I'd ignored her warning, dismissed it as the ramblings of a confused old woman, I'd be dead right now. My bedroom had been on the second floor, right above whatever had just blown up in my basement. If I'd been in that bed asleep at 2:47 in the morning, I wouldn't have woken up. Eleanor Hayes, a homeless woman most people walked past without seeing, had saved my life. But how the hell had she known the next 20 minutes passed in a blur? I threw on yesterday's clothes and stumbled onto Columbus Avenue. The fog was so thick I could barely see 10 FT ahead. My hands shook as I called an Uber. The driver pulled up 5 minutes later. A young guy with tired eyes who took one look at my face and didn't ask questions, just drove. The trip to Russian Hill normally took 10 minutes. Tonight it felt like hours. Every red light was agony. I kept seeing Eleanor's face, the desperate clarity in her eyes. Don't go home tonight. She'd known. Somehow she'd known. When we turned onto Jones Street, I saw the lights, first red and blue, flashing through the fog. Then the fire trucks, 3 of them, massive, their engines rumbling. Hoses snaked across the steep street, water running downhill in rivulets. Jesus, the driver whispered. Which house? I couldn't answer because there was no house anymore. Where my Victorian had stood, that beautiful blue and white painted lady, my fresh start. There was nothing but smoking rubble. The front wall had collapsed completely. I could see straight through to what used to be my Kit Brown. My life exposed like an architectural autopsy. The second floor where my bedroom had been had partially caved in. Beams jutted out at crazy angles. My bed was buried somewhere under tons of collapsed ceiling. The bed I should have been sleeping in 4 hours ago. I'm sorry, man. The driver said he didn't charge me. I got out on legs that didn't feel solid. The street was chaos. Firefighters moved through the scene in yellow coats. Neighbors stood in clusters. Bathrobe slippers, shock on every face. Mrs. Daniels from 2 doors down was crying. Old Yeppe had come all the way from North Beach. He saw me and crossed himself. Mr. Henderson. A tall man in a fire chief's helmet approached. His face was strewed with soot, eyes grim. The name on his coat read Walsh. Captain Stephen Walsh, SFFFD. His handshake was firm. I'm sorry about your home. What happened? Gas explosion? Massive one. Centered in your basement near the gas meter around 2 a.m. The whole structure came down in minutes. He studied me carefully. Where were you tonight? My bookstore, Columbus Avenue. I stayed there. Didn't come home. Why not? How do you explain a homeless woman's warning that you'd listened despite thinking you were crazy? I had a feeling, I said. Something told me not to. Walsh's expression shifted. Something flickered in his eyes. A feeling? Yeah. He nodded slowly. Well, Mr. Henderson, that feeling saved your life. If you'd been in your bedroom when this happened? He didn't finish. Patrick. Mrs. Daniels rushed toward me, gray hair wild still in her bathrobe. She grabbed my arm, eyes wide with relief. When I heard the explosion, I was terrified you'd come home early. I kept telling them you said you'd be away, but I wasn't sure. Thank God you're okay. Her voice shook. I heard it from 3 houses down. The whole street shook, windows rattled. Captain Walsh watched this exchange with interest. Mrs. Daniels, you're a neighbor. Yes, right there. She pointed. I was watching his house like he asked. Walsh's attention sharpened to watching it. When did he ask? Yesterday evening around 5:30. He said he'd be away on business. Walsh looked at me. You asked your neighbor to watch your house the same day it exploded. It wasn't a question. I could see the wheels turning in his head. Mr. Henderson, he said slowly, this wasn't an accident. We found evidence of tampering with your gas line. Someone deliberately set this up. The timing, the mechanism, this was premeditated. Someone wanted your house to blow up while you were inside it. The words hit like a second explosion. Someone, not something, someone had done this. Someone had tried to kill me. My mind went exactly where it had been circling since yesterday. Jason, the insurance question. Jennifer's cold eyes. 1.2 million reasons. Jesus Christ, I whispered. Walsh put a hand on my shoulder. You'll need to come to the station and give a statement. Detective Bradley is on his way. This is now a criminal investigation. I nodded numbly, staring at the ruins. My bedroom had been right above the basement, right above wherever that device had been placed. If I'd been asleep at 2 a.m. when it went off, I would be dead. They'd be pulling my body from the rubble instead of asking questions. Eleanor Hayes had saved my life. As dawn broke over Russian Hill, painting the fog, pale pink, one thought consumed me more than shock, more than the sick realization that someone had tried to murder me. How had Eleanor known? Captain Walsh had said it himself. This was deliberate, premeditated. Someone had tampered with my gas line, set up a timing device planned for me to die in my sleep. But how had a homeless woman with mental issues, who sat on a corner 1.5 miles from my house, known about it before it happened? How had she known to warn me exactly when she did, giving me just enough time to make the decision that saved my life? The sun climbed higher, burning off the fog. The ruins looked almost beautiful in the morning light if you could ignore what they represented. My past reduced to debris, my future almost stolen. I pulled out my phone with trembling hands, scrolled through my contacts, until I found the card Detective Bradley had given me last year after a break-in at the bookstore. I hadn't needed him then. I needed him now. But first I needed to do something else. I needed to walk back down to Columbus Avenue, back to that corner where Eleanor sat every morning with her hands folded and her eyes distant, I needed to thank her for saving my life. And I needed to understand how the hell she'd known my house was going to explode. Because gas leaks don't just happen, and homeless women don't just predict catastrophes. Eleanor had seen something or someone. And whatever she'd seen, whatever she knew, it was the only thing standing between me and answers. As I walked away from the smoking ruins of my home, past the firefighters and the neighbors, and Mrs. Daniels still crying on the sidewalk, the question echoed with every step. How did Eleanor know by 7 that morning I was back at Columbus and Broadway? My clothes, wire of smoke. My eyes burned from exhaustion and shock. But I couldn't rest. Not until I found her. Eleanor was exactly where she always was, on her piece of cardboard near the coffee shop wrapped in layers, despite the mild October weather. When she saw me coming, something flickered across her face. Not surprise recognition like she'd been waiting. Eleanor. I knelt down on the sidewalk beside her, not caring about the morning commuters stepping around us, not caring about the stairs. How did you know? My voice cracked. How did you know about my house? She looked at me with those clouded eyes, the confusion I was used to seeing. But then, like yesterday morning, something cleared. A window opening in fog. I saw him, she said quietly. Saw who? She reached into one of her many pockets and pulled out an old flip phone, the kind they gave away free at shelters. Her hands shook as she opened it, scrolled through with painful slowness. 2 nights ago, Monday night, her voice was soft, distant. I don't sleep well. I walk sometimes when the voices get too loud. I walk and walk until I'm tired enough. She found what she was looking for and held out the phone. The photo was grainy, poorly lit, but unmistakable. A man crouched near a basement window, my basement window. The timestamp read, "Mon Monday, 11:03 p.m." The street sign in the background confirmed it, Jones Street. And the man's face caught in the glow of a flashlight he was holding. That's my son. The words came out strangled. Jason. My Jason at my house 2 nights ago at 11 at night near the gas meter. I recognized him. Eleanor said he came to your bookstore 2 weeks ago. I saw him through the window arguing with you. I remember faces even when I forget other things. She did. I remembered that visit, Jason asking about the life insurance, the desperate edge in his voice, the way he'd left without saying goodbye. I took the picture. Eleanor continued because something felt wrong, the way he kept looking around, the way he was dressed all in black, and the bag he had. My hands were shaking. I zoomed in on the photo as much as the cheap phone would allow. There in Jason's hand, some kind of case metal professional looking. I tried to go closer, Eleanor said. But he finished whatever he was doing and left. I wanted to knock on your door, warn you then. But she looked down. My head wasn't clear that night. By the time I sorted out what I'd seen, it was morning. And you came by like always with your coffee and your kindness. Her eyes found mine suddenly sharp. I knew somewhere in here. She tapped her temple. I knew you were in danger. So I warned you and you listened. A sad smile. Most people don't listen to me anymore. I stared at the photo. Evidence, clear, undeniable evidence that Jason had been at my house the night before. It exploded. That he'd been near the gas meter, that he'd had equipment. My son had tried to kill me. The words still wouldn't fully compute. Eleanor, you have to come with me to the police. Fear flashed across her face. They won't believe me. They will. You have proof. I gestured to the phone. This photo could... I'm homeless, Luke. Her voice was flat. I talk to myself. I see things that aren't there sometimes. The police, they've picked me up before taking me to shelters. They think I'm crazy. You're not crazy. You saved my life. I couldn't save my own daughter. The words came out soft, broken. Sarah, she died 30 years ago. Car accident. She was 8. Sometimes I still talk to her even though I know she's gone. Sometimes I think she answers. Her eyes filled with tears. My husband died in that crash too. I fell apart. Lost my job at the library, lost my house, lost everything. And my mind, it broke. Pieces of it still work, but not all of it. Not all the time. I took her weathered hand in mine. Took you, saved me. That's all that matters right now. Will you come with me, please? She looked at the phone, then at me. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she nodded. We walked to the SFPD station on Vallejo Street. It took 20 minutes. Eleanor moved slowly, and I wasn't in any rush to face what was coming. With every step, my mind churned. Jason had planted the device. The photo proved it, but something didn't sit right. Jason was a drug addict, yes. Desperate for money, yes. But building a bomb. Tampering with gas lines, setting up a delayed ignition device, sophisticated enough that Captain Walsh had immediately recognized it as premeditated. That took knowledge, planning, resources. Jason barely kept his life together enough to show up for court dates. Someone had helped him, taught him, guided him, and I had a sick feeling. I knew who. Jennifer, my ex-wife, who'd always been the smart one, the planner, the one who thought 3 moves ahead. Jennifer, who would inherit nothing from my death, but who could manipulate our son into thinking I deserved it, who could promise him money, a fresh start, freedom from his debts. Jennifer, who'd always said I was a terrible father. As we reached the station steps, Eleanor squeezed my hand. "Are you ready?" she asked. I looked down at this woman who'd lost everything, family, home, mind, and still found the clarity to save a stranger's life. "No," I said honestly, "but let's do it anyway." We walked inside together. Detective Tom Bradley's office smelled like burnt coffee and old files. He was younger than I expected, maybe early 50s, with sharp eyes and the kind of face that had seen too much. When Eleanor and I walked in, still smelling of smoke and street, he didn't flinch. "Mr. Henderson, I've been expecting you." He gestured to 2 chairs. "Please sit." Eleanor hesitated, clutching her phone like a lifeline. Bradley's eyes softened slightly. "Ma'am, you're safe here. No one's going to ask you to leave." We sat. I explained everything while Eleanor stayed silent, hands trembling in her lap. When I finished, Bradley held out his hand. "May I see the phone?" Eleanor handed it over carefully, like it might break. Bradley studied the photo for a long time. Too long. Finally, he looked up, his expression grim. "This was taken Monday night, 11:03 p.m. Your house exploded Wednesday at 2 a.m. That's approximately 27 hours later. A delayed ignition device, exactly as Captain Walsh suspected." He zoomed in on Jason's hands, the metal case visible in the grainy image. Professional equipment. This wasn't some amateur job. Someone knew what they were doing, or someone taught him. His eyes met mine. "Mr. Henderson, I need you to be completely honest. Does your son have motive?" The question hurt more than it should have. Life insurance, $1.2 million. I'm the policyholder, but I swallowed hard. Jason asked about it 2 weeks ago. He's got drug debts, $80,000 at least. He's desperate. Who's the beneficiary? My ex-wife, Jennifer Morgan. But we're divorced. She wouldn't get. She could manipulate your son into thinking he would. Bradley's voice was flat professional, but I could hear the anger underneath. "Mr. Henderson, we need to move fast. If your son knows the house exploded and you survived, he might run. Then let's go." Jason's apartment was in the Tenderloin, a 4th floor or walk-up that smelled like mildew and desperation. 2 uniformed officers kicked in the door. I stayed back with Eleanor, watching from the stairwell as they cleared the space. Clear 1 occupant, non-hostile. Bradley motioned me forward. The apartment was a disaster. Empty takeout containers, dirty clothes, needles on the counter, and in the corner on a stained mattress sat Jason, my son. He looked up when we entered, and his face crumpled. "Tia." Bradley moved quickly, pulling Jason to his feet. Jason Henderson. You're under arrest for attempted murder and arson. You have the right to remain silent. Dad, I'm sorry. Jason's voice cracked. I'm so sorry. I didn't think anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. I'm sorry. Jason was crying now, not resisting as they cuffed his hands behind his back. I'm so sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry. One of the officers held up an evidence bag, inside gas line fittings, pipe wrenches, a printed diagram of a delayed ignition device clearly from an online search. Everything they needed to convict him. Bradley guided Jason toward the door. My son looked back at me, tears streaming down his face, and I saw him for what he was. Not a monster, but a broken kid who'd made a terrible choice. I love you, Dad. He choked out. I'm sorry, I couldn't speak. Couldn't move. They took him away. Outside in the harsh afternoon sunlight, I watched through the window of the patrol car as Jason sat with his head bowed, shoulders shaking. Eleanor stood beside me quiet. You okay? She asked softly. No. Bradley approached, pulling off his gloves. We'll process him and hold him for arraignment. Interrogation starts in 3 hours. We need to let him calm down first, and frankly, he needs to detox a bit before we can get coherent answers. I want to be there. You can't. This is an active investigation, and you're the victim. Bradley's tone gentled. Mr. Henderson, Luke, go home, or what's left of it. Get some rest. We'll call you when we know more. I can't rest. Not until I know why. My voice sounded hollow. He's my son. I need to know why he did this. Bradley studied me for a long moment. Then he pulled out a small notebook, flipped through pages. But there's something you should know. When we arrested him, your son kept saying something over and over. What Bradley read from his notes. She said he deserved it. She said he deserved it. He looked up. He wasn't talking about you directly. He said she told him a woman. My blood went cold. She said you were a bad father, that you abandoned him, that you deserved to die for what you'd done to him. Bradley's eyes were hard now. Luke, your son didn't come up with this plan alone. Someone manipulated him, convinced him, taught him. Jennifer, I whispered, your ex-wife. She's hated me since the divorce. Told Jason I was the reason for everything wrong in his life. Turned him against me. The pieces were falling into place sharp and cutting. She'd know how to do this. She's smart calculating, and she'd know exactly how to get Jason to I couldn't finish. Bradley closed his notebook. We'll question him about her. If she's involved, we'll find out. He glanced at Eleanor, who was watching the patrol car drive away. Miss Hayes, thank you for your cooperation. You may have saved not just Mr. Henderson's life, but helped us catch whoever's behind this. Eleanor nodded silently as we walked back toward Columbus Avenue, the sun beating down on the dirty, tenderloin streets. One thought consumed me. Jennifer. My ex-wife had tried to kill me using our own son as the weapon, and I was going to make sure she paid for it. 3 hours felt like 3 years. I sat in a waiting room at the SFPD station, staring at beige walls and drinking terrible coffee from a vending machine. Eleanor had gone back to her corner, but not before making me promise to eat something I couldn't imagine eating. When Bradley finally came to get me, his face was unreadable. He's ready to talk. You can watch from the observation room, but Luke, you need to prepare yourself. This isn't going to be easy. I followed him down a narrow hallway to a small, dark room with a one-way mirror. On the other side, Jason sat at a metal table, handcuffed, looking worse than I'd ever seen him. He was shaking, sweating. His skin had a gray pallor, and every few seconds he'd gag like he might throw up. Withdrawal. We had to deny him medical assistance until after questioning. Bradley said quietly beside me, "Standard procedure when drugs are involved. I'm sorry, I couldn't respond." Couldn't look away from my son falling apart on the other side of that glass. Bradley entered the interrogation room and sat down across from Jason. His voice came through speakers in our observation room. Surprisingly gentle. Jason, I need you to tell me the truth. Why did you want to hurt your father? Jason's head hung low. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible. Money. I owe $80,000 to some very bad people. They're going to kill me if I don't pay. He looked up, eyes red and hollow. The insurance policy, $1.2 million, that would fix everything. So you decided to murder your father for it. The word murder hung in the air like poison. Jason nodded, tears streaming down his face. It was supposed to solve everything, pay off my debts. Start over, Mom said. He stopped abruptly. Bradley leaned forward. Mom said what, nothing? Jason, who gave you the equipment, who taught you how to build that device. You're a drug addict, not an engineer. Someone helped you. Jason's shaking intensified. I can't shill. Bradley's tone sharpened. She will. What, Jason, if someone pressured you, manipulated you? That matters. But you need to tell me the truth right now. A long silence. Then Jason broke. My mom. His voice cracked. Mom said Dad deserved it. She said he threw her away like garbage after 15 years. Said he never loved us. Said he was the reason I turned out like this. The words were knives. She told me the insurance money would be mine. That Dad had destroyed our family and this would make it right. That it wasn't murder. It was justice. I gripped the edge of the table in the observation room, knuckles white. Bradley's voice stayed level. Did your mother provide the equipment? Not directly. She has someone, a guy named Marcus. Marcus, who I don't know his last name. She just calls him Marcus. He's some kind of engineer or mechanic. I think he built the device and showed me how to install it, walked me through everything. Jason wiped his nose with his shoulder hand still cuffed. Mom planned it all, every detail. She said 2 a.m. was when Dad would be in the deepest sleep. She said to put it near the gas meter in the basement so it would look like an accident. And she promised you the insurance money, half. She said we'd split it, $600,000 each. Jason laughed bitterly. Enough to pay off my debts and disappear, start a new life somewhere. Bradley wrote something down. How long has she been planning this? Months, maybe 6 months. She started mentioning it after I told her about my debts. At first I thought she was joking, but then Marcus showed up with blueprints and equipment, and he trailed off staring at nothing. Did you want to do this, Jason? The question hung there. Jason looked up at the mirror like he could see me watching. Maybe he could feel me there. No, he whispered. But I didn't know how to say no to her. She's my mom. She's all I have left. And she kept saying Dad deserved it, that he abandoned us, that he chose his stupid bookstore over his family. His voice broke. I believed her. God help me. I believed her. Bradley stood up. We're going to need you to tell us everything you know about Marcus. Full name if you have it where he lives, how to contact him, and we'll need your mother's current address and phone number. Are you going to arrest her? If what you're telling me is true, yes, she'll be charged with conspiracy to commit murder. Jason nodded slowly, something like relief crossing his face. Good. She should be. This was her idea, all of it. Bradley left the room. A moment later, he appeared beside me in the observation room. Luke, I'm sorry you had to hear that. I couldn't speak, couldn't process what I just witnessed. My ex-wife had orchestrated my murder, had manipulated our son into being the weapon, had found someone to build a bomb and teach Jason how to plant it. For 6 months, she'd been planning to kill me. We need to talk about Jennifer Morgan, Bradley said. And this Marcus person, do you know anyone by that name in her life? I shook my head numbly. We'll find him and we'll bring her in for questioning. Bradley's jaw was tight. Luke, this goes deeper than we thought. Your ex-wife didn't just manipulate your son? She found an accomplice, someone with technical expertise. This was a conspiracy. Through the glass, Jason sat with his head in his cuffed hands, still shaking, still crying. My son, my broken, manipulated son. And somewhere out there, Jennifer was going about her day thinking she'd gotten away with it, thinking I was dead. When do we get her? My voice sounded strange, flat, cold. Bradley met my eyes. Tonight we moved, tonight. 3 weeks passed like walking through fog. I moved into a small apartment above an Italian restaurant in North Beach. The rent was cheap because the smell of garlic and tomato sauce soaked into everything, but I didn't mind. It was close to the bookstore, and most nights I couldn't smell anything anyway. Jennifer had been arrested the same night as Jason. I didn't watch. Didn't want to see her face. Bradley told me she'd denied everything at first, then lawyered up and went silent. Marcus Webb, the engineer boyfriend she'd been hiding, was picked up 2 hours later at his apartment in Bernal Heights. He'd tried to run. They were both being held without bail conspiracy to commit murder. The trial was months away. Jason was in San Francisco County Jail detoxing, waiting for his own arraignment, and I was trying to figure out how to breathe again. Every morning I walked down to Columbus and Broadway. Eleanor was always there, but she wasn't the same woman I'd met 6 months ago. The city had placed her in a small studio apartment in Chinatown after her testimony made the news. Some nonprofit had taken interest, gotten her on medication for her mental health issues. The voices were quieter now, she said, the confusion less frequent. She'd even started volunteering part-time at the public library on Larkin Street, reeling books going back to what she'd been before the accident. Took everything. You saved me, I told her one morning over coffee from Yepes. No, she said, clearer than I'd ever heard her. We saved each other. Maybe she was right. But I still couldn't sleep. Still couldn't reconcile the two versions of Jason that lived in my head. The little boy who used to help me shove books on Saturday mornings. And the broken man who'd planted a bomb in my basement. How do you forgive that you're still angry? Eleanor observed one morning. Of course I'm angry. He tried to kill me. But he didn't. She sipped her coffee slowly. And he was manipulated by someone who should have protected him. Just like you protected him all those years, even when he pushed you away. That doesn't excuse what he did. No. But forgiveness isn't about excusing, it's about releasing. She looked at me with those eyes that were finally clear. Luke, holding on to that anger will destroy you more than that explosion ever could. Forgive him. Not because he deserves it, because you do. I didn't know if I could. That afternoon, Detective Bradley called. Luke, I wanted to give you an update. Jason's been clean for 3 weeks now, full detox. He's attending NA meetings in jail, seeing a counselor. Bradley paused. He asks about you every day. My throat tightened. He wants to see you. Says he needs to tell you something important. Something about Jennifer and Marcus that he didn't mention before. What is it he won't tell us? Says it has to be you. Bradley's voice gentled. Luke, you don't have to go, but he's insistent. Says it's urgent, that you need to know before it's too late. Too late? The words stuck with me long after I hung up. What could be too late? Jennifer and Marcus were locked up. The evidence was overwhelming. Jason's testimony had sealed their fate. What could possibly be urgent now? But the question gnawed at me. And despite everything, despite the anger and betrayal and grief, I couldn't ignore it. He was still my son. The next morning, I told Eleanor I was going to the jail. Good, she said simply. It's time. San Francisco County Jail. NRA 5 was a gray building in San Bruno, south of the city. I'd never been inside a jail before. The security process felt dehumanizing. Empty your pockets, walk through metal detectors, get your hands stamped like you were entering a nightclub from hell. Officer Carlos Jenkins, a broad-shouldered man with kind eyes, escorted me through the facility. Your son asks about you every single day, Jenkins said, as we walked down the fluorescent lit corridor. Morning count, evening count doesn't matter. How's my dad? Is he okay? Did he come today? Each word was a small knife. He's trying, Mr. Henderson. Really trying. Clean for 3 weeks. That's not easy in here. Jenkins glanced at me, and he keeps saying he needs to tell you the truth before it's too late. Before what's too late? Jenkins shook his head. Won't tell us. Says it has to be you. We stopped in front of a door marked Visitation Room B. He's in there. You'll be separated by glass talk through phones. Standard non-cont visit. Jenkins studied my face. You don't have to do this if you're not ready. I wasn't ready. Didn't know if I'd ever be ready, but I nodded anyway. Jenkins opened the door. The visitation room was small and cold. A row of cubicles with thick plexiglass dividers and phones mounted on the walls. Most were empty. In the last cubicle on the right, I saw him, Jason. He looked different, thinner hair cut short. The gray pallor of withdrawal had faded, replaced by something almost healthy. His eyes, when they met mine through the glass, were clearer than they'd been in years. He picked up his phone immediately, waited. I sat down slowly, my legs feeling unsteady. Picked up my phone. Dad, his voice cracked. Thank you for coming? I wasn't sure you would. I couldn't speak. Didn't trust my voice. Dad, I need to tell you something. Something I should have told Detective Bradley, but I was scared, and he took a shaky breath. Mom and Marcus, they're not done. My blood went cold. What do you mean, not done? Jason's eyes filled with tears, but his voice was steady, urgent. They have a backup plan, and it involves Eleanor. Jason picked up the phone before I even sat down. His hands were shaking, but his eyes were clear. Clearer than I'd seen them in years. Dad. His voice broke immediately. I never wanted to hurt you. I swear to God, I never wanted this. I held the phone but said nothing. Didn't know what to say. I need to tell you everything before Mom finds out I talked. He leaned closer to the glass. Urgent. Dad. She's dangerous. More dangerous than you know. Jason, she's in custody. She can't hurt anyone. You don't understand. He wiped his eyes with his sleeve. She's been planning this for years. Not months, years since before the divorce. The words hit like cold water. What are you talking about? She visited me every week for 6 months while I was using. I thought she cared, but she was working on me, breaking me down. His voice shook. She kept saying the same things over and over. Your father destroyed our family. Your father chose his bookstore over us. Your father is the reason you're like this? I remembered Jennifer's words from years ago. The same accusations thrown at me during the divorce. She introduced me to Marcus in January. Said he was a friend who could help me with my problem, my debts. Jason laughed bitterly. But that wasn't why she brought him. She brought him because he knew how to build bombs. What Marcus Webb? He's 42 mechanical engineer. Works for some HVAC company in the East Bay. Specializes in gas systems. Jason spoke faster now, like he was racing against time. Mom told him about you, about the insurance, about how you deserved what was coming. Through the glass, I could see my son was terrified. Marcus built the device. Professional-grade propane-based with an electronic timer. He showed me exactly how to install it, where to place it for maximum damage, how to set the timer so it would go off when you were asleep. Why are you telling me this now? Because Mom's plan didn't stop with you. Jason's eyes filled with tears. Dad, if the explosion had worked, if you died, Marcus was going to disappear. Leave the country, and Mom was going to collect the insurance and join him 3 months later. She'd already picked out a place, Costa Rica. No extradition treaty. My head spun, but you survived and Eleanor saw me, and now everything's falling apart. He pressed his hand against the glass. Dad, I think Mom and Marcus have a backup plan. They're in jail, Jason. Separate facilities. They can't. They can communicate through lawyers, through other inmates. I don't know how, but they will. His voice rose. Dad, Eleanor is the only witness, the only one who can prove I was there that night. If something happens to her, the implication hung between us like smoke. You think they'd try to hurt Eleanor? I think they'd do anything to avoid spending the rest of their lives in prison. Jason wiped his face again. Dad, there's something else you need to know. Marcus isn't just Mom's friend. They're together. Have been for years. I think he's the reason she cheated in the first place. The affair, the betrayal that had ended our marriage. It hadn't been a moment of weakness or a midlife crisis. It had been Marcus Webb all along. How long I don't know exactly, but I saw text messages on Mom's phone once 2 years before you found out. She was already talking about our future. And when we're finally free. Jason's voice dropped. Hi, Dad. She's been planning to get rid of you for a long time. The divorce was supposed to be enough, but then you kept the big life insurance policy, and that gave her another idea. I stared at my son through the plexiglass, this young man I barely recognized anymore. Why didn't you come to me when she started talking like this? Why didn't you tell me because I believed her? Jason's voice cracked. Because I was high all the time, and she was the only person who still talked to me. And I wanted to believe it was your fault that my life was so messed up. It was easier to blame you than to look at myself. He was sobbing now, shoulders shaking. But I'm clean now. 3 weeks and I can see it clearly. Mom manipulated me, used me like a weapon, and I let her because I was too weak to say no. He looked up, eyes red. I'm so sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry. Officer Jenkins appeared behind Jason, signaling that time was almost up. The dad, please protect Eleanor and protect yourself. If Mom figures out I've told you all this, he couldn't finish. She won't. I promise. I love you, Dad. I know I don't deserve to say that, but I do. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to make this right. The line went dead. Jenkins was leading Jason away. I sat there for a moment, phone still pressed to my ear, watching my son disappear through the metal door. Then I stood and walked out of that jail as fast as I could. Outside in the parking lot, I pulled out my phone and called Bradley. He answered on the second ring. Luke, everything okay? No, we need to talk now. It's about Jennifer and Marcus. I unlocked my car, hands still shaking. They're planning something. Something that involves Eleanor. What do you mean Jason just told me everything? Marcus Webb isn't just Jennifer's accomplice. He's her boyfriend. Has been for years. And if they think Eleanor's testimony is going to put them away forever, I didn't need to finish. Bradley's voice hardened. Where are you now, leaving County Jail 5? Meet me at the station in 30 minutes. And Luke, call Eleanor. Make sure she's somewhere safe. I hung up and immediately dialed Eleanor's number. It rang and rang and rang. No answer. My blood turned to ice. 3 days later, I sat in Detective Bradley's office staring at a table covered in evidence. Bank records, phone logs, photographs, surveillance reports, the entire conspiracy laid out in paper and digital files. Bradley slid a folder toward me. Jennifer withdrew $15,000 in cash 3 months ago from a joint account with Marcus Webb that we didn't know existed until yesterday. I opened the folder. Bank statements showed regular deposits from both Jennifer and Marcus dating back 2 years. Withdrawals for travel equipment and one large payment to someone named R. Torres with the memo line consultation. Who's Torres? We're still tracking that down, but based on the timing and amount, we think it might have been payment for information. Maybe someone who helped them plan the technical aspects? Bradley pulled up another file on his laptop. The phone records show Jennifer and Marcus talked almost daily for the past 18 months, sometimes multiple times a day. He turned the screen toward me. Call logs, text message, timestamps, even GPS data showing they'd met in person dozens of times while Jennifer was still married to me. She was planning this before the divorce, I said numbly. Years before, this wasn't impulsive. This was methodical. Bradley leaned back in his chair. Marcus Webb, 42 mechanical engineer with 15 years experience in HVAC systems. No priors, clean record, which makes him even more dangerous because no one was watching him. I stared at Marcus's photo. Ordinary face, the kind you'd pass on the street and forget immediately. But those were the eyes that had looked at my house and seen a murder scene. What's the plan? I asked. Bradley closed his laptop and looked at me directly. We need Jennifer to confess on tape. Her lawyer's already building a defense that Jason acted alone, that she had no knowledge of the plot. Without solid proof of her involvement, she might walk. But Jason's testimony can be dismissed as a drug addict, trying to reduce his sentence by blaming his mother. We need her words, her voice, admitting what she did. Bradley stood and walked to the window. Prison visits are our best shot. Jason can request to see her. If he plays it right, she might let something slip. You want to use my son as bait? I want to use your son to catch the woman who manipulated him into attempted murder. Bradley's voice was firm. Luke, this is our chance, maybe our only chance. He picked up his phone and dialed. Put it on speaker. After 3 rings, hello. Jason's voice, thin, nervous. Jason, it's Detective Bradley. Your father's here with me. A pause. I'm here, son. Jason, we need your help, Bradley said. We need you to request a visit with your mother. Get her talking about the plan about Marcus, about what she told you to do. Silence on the other end. Then she'll know she's smart. She'll see right through it, not if you play it right. Bradley's tone was steady coaching. You're angry at your father for abandoning you. You're hurt that he hasn't visited more? You want your mother to know you're still on her side. But I'm not. She doesn't know that. As far as Jennifer knows, you're still her son who'd do anything for her? Bradley glanced at me. Make her feel safe. Make her think you're still under her control. Then ask about the plan. Say you're worried Marcus might talk. See how she reacts. Another long silence. What if she figures it out? What if she realizes I'm wearing a wire or that you're listening? Then she'll call her lawyer and the visit ends. But if she doesn't, if she talks, Bradley let it hang there. Jason, this woman tried to kill your father using you as the weapon. She doesn't get to walk away from that. I heard my son breathing on the other end of the line. I said quietly, You don't have to do this if you're not ready. No. His voice was stronger now. No, I want to. I need to. This is the only way I can make it right. A pause when tomorrow 2 p.m. we'll have a wire on you audio recording through the prison phone system and officers standing by. Bradley's jaw was tight. If she suspects anything, if she asks for her lawyer, you end the conversation immediately. Do you understand? Yes, Jason. If this works, your cooperation will be noted in your sentencing. I can't promise anything, but it will matter. I don't care about that. Jason's voice cracked slightly. I just want to stop her from hurting anyone else. Bradley nodded, even though Jason couldn't see him. Good. I'll arrange the visit for tomorrow at 2. Stay strong. Wait. Jason's voice stopped us. Dad, are you still there? I'm here if something happens to me in here. If Mom figures it out and he couldn't finish, my throat tightened. Nothing's going to happen to you. But if it does, I need you to know I love you and I'm sorry for everything. My eyes burned. I love you too, son, and I forgive you. I heard him crying softly before the line went dead. Bradley sat down his phone and turned to me. What about Marcus Webb? We've got units watching his lawyer's office and monitoring all communication from his cell block. If Jennifer tries to warn him, we'll know. Bradley pulled up another file. Marcus is being held at San Mateo County, separate facility. No contact with Jennifer. But prison has ways of passing messages. You think she'll try if she's smart? No. If she panics, yes. He closed the file. Either way, we'll be ready. I stood up, legs unsteady. What do I do? Go home. Stay with Eleanor. Make sure she's safe. Bradley's expression softened slightly. And tomorrow at 2 p.m., pray your son can pull this off. The trap was set. 24 hours until we caught a killer or lost our only shot at justice. I walked out of Bradley's office into the bright San Francisco afternoon. The fog just starting to roll in from the bay. Tomorrow at 2 p.m., everything would change one way or another. The next day at exactly 2:00 p.m., Jennifer Morgan walked into the visitation room at San Francisco County Jail like she was walking into a boardroom she knew she'd dominate. I watched from the observation room, Bradley beside me, heart pounding. This was it. 3 weeks of planning. Jason's courage. Our one chance to get Jennifer to incriminate herself on tape. She looked perfect, even in an orange jumpsuit. Even after 3 weeks in jail, she'd maintained that ice queen composure. Her hair was styled in a sleek ponytail. No makeup, but she didn't need it. Her face was a carefully constructed mask of controlled calm. She sat down across from Jason with the confidence of someone who thought she still controlled everything, who thought her son was still her weapon, who had no idea she was walking into a trap. Jason sat with trembling hands but clear eyes. 3 weeks clean, Bradley had coached him for hours, teaching him what to say, when to push. But the fear in Jason's eyes was real. He was about to betray his mother, and some part of him still craved her approval. He picked up the phone. She picked up hers. Her first word, idiot. Jason flinched. Beside me, Bradley's hand landed on my shoulder, steadying me. Mom, I told you to keep your mouth shut about the plan. Her voice was pure ice. No matter what evidence they had, that was the deal, Jason. But you couldn't do that one simple thing. You've always been weak. But Mom, they had a photo. I don't care what they had. She leaned forward, eyes blazing. 5 years of planning, 5 years. And you're going to ruin it because you can't keep your mouth shut for 5 minutes. Jason looked hurt, confused. I didn't tell them anything important, I swear. Then why am I in this prison jumpsuit instead of on a beach in Costa Rica drinking margaritas with Marcus? Her laugh was bitter. First mention of Marcus. Bradley was already writing. You told them enough, Jennifer continued, just like your father. Weak, pathetic, can't keep anything to himself. I gripped the table edge. Bradley squeezed my shoulder harder. Your father deserved to die for what he did to me in that divorce. Jennifer's voice rose, control cracking. He took everything. The house I decorated, half the savings I helped earn my reputation when everyone found out about Marcus. But you said it was about the insurance money. Jason prompted it was about justice. Jennifer slammed her palm against the glass. Then $1.2 million that should have been mine anyway, but it was also about making Luke Henderson finally pay for ruining my life. She was spiraling now. Bradley practically vibrated with tension. Mom, who's Marcus? You never really told me. Jennifer's eyes narrowed, suspicion flickering, but her need to justify herself was stronger. Marcus Webb is my real partner, a mechanical engineer with 15 years of experience. When I told him about my problem with your father, about the insurance policy, Marcus helped me. He built the device, the explosive professional-grade propane based with electronic timing. It took him 3 months to design perfectly. The placement in the basement, the timing at 2 a.m. when your father would be in deepest sleep, the gas leak that would look like an accident, it was perfect. Bradley wrote frantically, every word on tape. So you and Marcus planned everything. Of course we planned it. Jennifer's voice turned sharp. We spent 6 months setting this up. I spent that time working on you, Jason, visiting every week, filling your head with what you needed to believe. Your father abandoned you. Your father chose his bookstore over you. Your father is why you're an addict. She laughed coldly. Then you believed every word. You were pathetically easy to manipulate. Real tears ran down Jason's face now. You used me. I gave you a purpose, Jennifer shouted, standing. You were a worthless drug addict with $80,000 in debt. I gave you a way out, and you were supposed to get half the insurance. $600, $1,000 to pay your debts, but you weren't really going to split it with me. Jennifer's smile was cruel. Of course not. Did you think I'd share $1.2 million with an addict who can't keep his mouth shut? The plan was simple. You plant the device, your father dies, I collect the insurance. Then 3 months later, I have a breakdown and need to heal somewhere tropical. Marcus was setting up new identities. We had a house in Costa Rica picked out. No extradition treaty. New life. What about me? What about you? Jennifer's voice was ice. You'd have served your purpose. I might have sent money eventually. Maybe? The door opened. Bradley stepped through with 2 officers. Jennifer Morgan, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder. Attempted murder, solicitation of murder, and insurance fraud. Jennifer's face went white, then red, then twisted with rage. This is a trap, Jason. You traitor. You have the right to remain silent. I know my rights, Jennifer screamed. This won't hold up. My lawyer will. Your lawyer will listen to 32 minutes of recorded confession, Bradley interrupted calmly. To where you admitted to orchestrating murder, enlisting your son, conspiring with Marcus Webb, and planning to flee to Costa Rica. That'll play well with the jury. He nodded to officers. Take her. As they moved to cuff her, Jennifer's eyes found Jason. You betrayed your own mother. She screamed as they forced her arms back. I gave you life. You tried to make me a murderer, Jason said quietly, steadily. You don't get to be my mother anymore. Jennifer lunged at the glass like an animal. Officers yanked her back. This is your fault, Luke. She screamed at the observation window. If you just died, if that homeless woman hadn't interfered, the plan was perfect. We should be in Costa Rica. This should have worked. They dragged her out, still screaming about the perfect plan. Marcus. The money, the beach house, how I deserved to die. Her voice echoed down the corridor until the door slammed shut. Jason sat alone, head in cuffed hands, shoulders shaking. I stood in the observation room, legs unsteady. My ex-wife had just confessed to trying to murder me, had admitted to spending 6 months destroying our son's mind. Bradley appeared beside me. We got her full confession, everything. He should have sounded triumphant. Instead, he sounded tired. Luke, there's a problem. My stomach dropped. What Marcus Webb left his apartment 19 minutes ago. Surveillance lost him near the Bay Bridge. Bradley showed me a text. I think he knows Jennifer talked. The floor tilted. Eleanor, we've got units at her apartment and the library. His phone rang. He answered, his face draining of color. When? How long a pause? Get everyone there now. He hung up, looking at me with shocked eyes. Eleanor's not home? Her neighbor, Mrs. Helen Wong, saw her leave an hour ago with a man matching Marcus's description. Said Eleanor looked scared. Said he had his hand on her arm tight. The world narrowed to terror. He has her. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered with shaking hands. Hello? A man's voice. Calm, cold. Mr. Henderson, my name is Marcus Webb. I believe you've been looking for me. In the background, frightened breathing. Then, Eleanor's voice, faint but unmistakable. Luke and I have something that belongs to you. The voice was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that comes right before violence. My hand tightened on the phone. Where's Eleanor safe for now? A pause and I could hear him breathing on the other end. Controlled, measured. I watched the news this morning, saw Jennifer being transferred from county jail. Very dramatic. Lots of cameras. I assume she talked. Bradley was already signaling to officers across the room, mouthing words I couldn't hear, pointing at my phone. Someone was tracing the call. Someone else was pulling up maps on a computer screen. What do you want? I kept my voice steady, kept him talking. What I've always wanted Mr. Henderson to disappear with the woman I love and the money we earned. His voice hardened, the calm cracking like ice. But you survived. That homeless woman saw Jason. And now everything we built for 5 years is falling apart because of you. Eleanor has nothing to do with this. She has everything to do with this. He was losing composure now. Voice rising. And her testimony puts me away for life. Do you understand that life I built that device perfectly? 27 hours of precise timing. The placement was flawless. The gas leak would have looked completely accidental. You should be dead. Bradley was writing on his notepad, holding it up. Chinatown, Eleanor's apt. Go now. We were already moving. Marcus listened to me. No, you listen. He was shouting now, all pretense of control gone. Jennifer and I have been together for 5 years. 5 years of planning, waiting, being careful. We had a life planned. Costa Rica, house on the beach, new names, new everything. And you just wouldn't die. The line went dead. Bradley was already on his radio as we ran for the parking lot. All units, 483 Grant Avenue, Chinatown, 3rd floor. Suspect Marcus Webb, white male, 4261. 200 lb armed and extremely dangerous. Possible hostage situation. I repeat, possible hostage situation. The drive from the Hall of Justice to Chinatown took 8 minutes. Through midday San Francisco traffic, it felt like 8 hours. Every red light an eternity. Every car in front of us an obstacle. Bradley's siren cleared a path, but not fast enough. Never fast enough. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. She's not home. Marcus's voice. Breathless now. Angry. She's not here. Where is she? I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me. Eleanor Hayes, 483 Grant Avenue, apartment 3B. She's not here. Where did you hide? Her relief flooded through me for half a second before the next thought hit. If she wasn't home, where was she? I didn't hide anyone. I don't know where she is. You're lying. The sound of something breaking. Glass? You moved her. You knew I'd come. Well, guess what? I'll find her. And when I do, the line went dead again. Bradley was already redirecting units. Check the library on Larkin. Check Henderson's books. Find Eleanor Hayes now. My phone buzzed. Own? Text from Eleanor at library. Leaving early, not feeling well. Heading home. My blood turned to ice. I called her once, twice, 3 times. No answer. She's heading home. I told Bradley. She doesn't know he's there. Bradley's face went white. Step on it. We screeched to a stop on Grant Avenue at 2:47 p.m. The street was busy. Tourists and locals produced markets and herb shops. The smell of dim sum and incense mixing in the afternoon air. Normal. Everything looked normal. But from the 3rd floor window of 483, I could hear shouting. And then a woman scream, Eleanor! I was out of the car before it fully stopped taking the stairs 3 at a time. The building was old, narrow, the kind of walk-up where the stairs creaked and groaned under your weight. Bradley and 2 uniformed officers were right behind me, but I didn't wait. 3rd floor. The hallway smelled like ginger and cooking oil and fear. Marcus Webb stood outside apartment 3B kicking the door. The frame was already splintering. The cheap lock barely holding. Eleanor. His voice was raw with rage. Open this door or I break it down. Police step away from the door. Marcus spun around, saw me, saw Bradley's gun for a second time, stopped. I could see the calculation in his eyes. Fight or flight, surrender or chaos. Then he charged not at Bradley, at me. You should be dead. He slammed into me like a freight train, driving me backward into the wall. Air exploded from my lungs. Pain radiated through my spine. I spent months building that device. Months. 27 hours of perfect timing. Gas ignition at exactly 2:00 a.m. when you'd be in deepest sleep. It should have worked. His hands were around my throat, squeezing. The world started to narrow. Dark spots dancing at the edges of my vision. She ruined everything. Marcus's face was inches from mine, spit flying as he screamed. But that crazy homeless with her phone and her warning, 5 years. 5 years with Jennifer planning, waiting, and some nobody destroys it all. I couldn't breathe, couldn't speak. My hands clawed at his wrists, but he was stronger, fueled by desperation and rage. Let him go. Bradley's voice gun drawn. Let him go now, or I will shoot. You took everything from me. Marcus's grip tightened. I could hear my pulse in my ears, feel consciousness starting to slip. My future, my money, my life with Jennifer. A door burst open behind us, Eleanor. She stood in her doorway holding a cast iron skillet, the same one she'd used to fry eggs that morning, now raised above her head like a weapon. Get away from him. Marcus's grip loosened just slightly as he turned, distracted. I drove my knee up hard into his groin. He doubled over with a howl of pain and rage. Eleanor swung the skillet. The sound of cast iron connecting with skull echoed through the narrow hallway like a bell tolling. Marcus went down hard. His head cracked against the hardwood floor, and he lay there, stunned, blood running from a gash on his forehead where the skillet had connected. 3 officers were on him immediately, forcing his arms behind his back, snapping cuffs on his wrists. He struggled weakly, still muttering. I built that device perfectly. Should have worked. Perfect timing. You should be dead. Should be dead. Bradley holstered his weapon and knelt beside Marcus, checking his pupils, his pulse. Marcus Webb, you're under arrest for attempted murder assault on a police officer assault with intent to kill, conspiracy to commit murder, and about 15 other charges I'll think of on the way to the station. Marcus looked up at me, his eyes unfocused, blood dripping into them. Jennifer said you deserved it. Said you destroyed her life. Said the insurance money was ours. We were going to Costa Rica beach house. New names. It was perfect. It was all perfect. Get him out of here, Bradley ordered, as they dragged Marcus toward the stairs, still handcuffed, still muttering about the perfect plan, the perfect device, how it should have worked. I turned to Eleanor. She was shaking, still holding the skillet, tears streaming down her face. Luke, are you okay? I pulled her into a hug. She was so small, so fragile. The skillet clattered to the floor as she wrapped her arms around me and sobbed into my chest. I heard him kicking the door. I was so scared. I didn't know what to do. I grabbed the first thing I could find, and she couldn't finish. You saved me, I said, my voice rough from where Marcus had choked me. My throat ached, my back, screamed where I'd hit the wall, but we were alive. You saved me again. Mrs. Helen Wong appeared in the hallway from apartment 3C, still holding her phone. I called 911. I told them to hurry. Ellen, dear, are you hurt? I'm okay, Helen, thank you. Bradley approached us, pulling off his gloves. Miss. Haze that was incredibly brave and incredibly stupid. Eleanor let out a shaky laugh through her tears. I couldn't let him hurt Luke. Not after everything. Not after. She looked up at me. You saw me when no one else did? How could I let someone take that away? Paramedics arrived to check both of us. Eleanor's hands wouldn't stop shaking. They gave her something to calm her nerves. Checked her blood pressure, made sure she wasn't injured. They checked my throat, bruised but not seriously damaged. My back painful, but nothing broken. Marcus Webb was loaded into an ambulance under police guard, still muttering about his perfect plan, his perfect device, how I should be dead. As they closed the ambulance doors, I heard him scream one last time. I built it perfectly. You should be dead. Then silence. Bradley stood beside me on Grant Avenue, watching the ambulance pull away. The afternoon sun was still warm. Chinatown still bustled with normal life. Tourists took pictures. Vendors sold produce. Somewhere nearby, someone was playing music. That's both of them, Bradley said quietly. Jennifer and Marcus both in custody, both caught on tape confessing. I nodded, unable to speak. My throat hurt too much. Luke, you need to understand something. Bradley turned to face me. Marcus Webb is a mechanical engineer with 15 years of experience. He built bombs for a living. HVAC systems, industrial equipment. He knew exactly what he was doing. That device was professional grade. If you'd been in that house. I know. Eleanor Hayes saved your life? Twice? Once with a warning most people would have ignored, and once with a kitchen implement. He shook his head. I've been a cop for 23 years. I've never seen anything like this. Eleanor appeared beside me, a blanket wrapped around her shoulders, courtesy of the paramedics. She looked exhausted but steady. Can we go home now? She asked softly. Yeah, I said, putting my arm around her shoulders. Let's go home. As we walked back toward my car, the adrenaline fading, replaced by bone-deep exhaustion and relief, Eleanor spoke quietly. He was going to kill you, I know. And he would have killed me to get to you, to silence me. I know Luke. Yeah, I'm glad I hit him with the skillet. Despite everything, the fear, the violence, the shock of almost dying for the third time in 6 weeks, I laughed. Me too, Eleanor. Me too. Behind us, San Francisco kept moving. Traffic flowed. People lived their lives. The world didn't stop because two broken people had saved each other again. But for us, in that moment, everything had changed. The last piece of Jennifer's plan had fallen. Marcus Webb was in custody. The conspiracy was over. Finally, truly, it was over. 6 weeks later, on a cold December morning, I walked up the steps of San Francisco Superior Court with Eleanor beside me. The fog was thick that day, wrapping around the courthouse like a shroud. Inside, the hallways buzzed with reporters, lawyers, and curious onlookers. The trial of Jennifer Morgan and Marcus Webb had made headlines for weeks. The bookstore murder plot, they called it. I hated the attention, but I needed to be here, needed to see justice done. Eleanor squeezed my arm as we pushed through reporters shouting questions. Detective Bradley appeared at my side, guiding us through. No comment. Let them through. Courtroom 4 was packed. Every seat taken, people standing along the back wall. I recognized Mrs. Helen Wong from Russian Hill, Yeppe from the cafe, some regular customers who'd followed the case. At exactly 9:00 a.m., the BIFE called out, "All rise, the Honorable Judge Patricia Reeves presiding." Judge Reeves entered, a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and sharp eyes. She took her seat, surveyed the packed courtroom, and nodded. "Please be seated." Then Jennifer was brought in. She walked between two guards in an orange jumpsuit, hand-scuffed. Her hair was pulled back severely, no makeup, but she held her head high, face carefully blank. Our eyes met briefly. She looked away first. Marcus Webb came in next from a different door. He looked worse. Shoulders slumped, eyes hollow, defeated before sentencing even began. They sat at separate defense tables. Neither looked at the other. Judge Reeves banged her gavel. "We are here for sentencing of Jennifer Morgan and Marcus Webb, both convicted of conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, and related charges. Miss Lawson, you may begin." Sarah Lawson, the prosecutor, stood. "Your Honor, the evidence is overwhelming. We have audio recordings of Jennifer Morgan admitting to orchestrating a murder plot for insurance money. We have testimony from her son detailing months of manipulation. We have financial records showing a secret joint account with Marcus Webb. We have photographic evidence, and we have the testimony of Eleanor Hayes, who saved Mr. Henderson's life. Images appeared on a screen. Eleanor's photo of Jason at the gas meter. Bank statements. Text messages. The charred remains of my house. Jennifer Morgan spent 6 months manipulating her drug-addicted son into becoming a weapon. She convinced him his father deserved to die. She introduced him to Marcus Webb, who built a sophisticated explosive device. She planned every detail and promised to split $1.2 million while secretly planning to flee to Costa Rica with Marcus Webb. Sarah Lawson's voice hardened. This was premeditated, calculated, cold-blooded attempted murder. But for Eleanor Hayes, a homeless woman's society had written off Luke Henderson would be dead. The people recommend maximum sentence for both defendants. Judge Reeves nodded. Defense. Jennifer's lawyer tried to argue she was unaware of the full plan. Judge Reeves cut him off. Counselor, we have a recording of your client saying the plan was perfect. Gas leak, accidental explosion. We split the money and disappear to Costa Rica. That is not someone unaware. That is someone who architected it. The lawyer sat down deflated. Marcus Webb's lawyer simply asked for leniency based on cooperation and no prior record. Judge Reeves made notes, then looked up. I'd like to hear from witnesses. Miss Eleanor Hayes, please approach. Eleanor's hand tightened on mine. She was terrified, shaking, but she stood and walked to the witness stand with her head high. After being sworn in, Judge Reeves spoke gently. Miss Hayes, in your own words, why did you warn Mr. Henderson? Eleanor took a breath. I was homeless for 30 years after my husband and daughter died. I lost everything. Most people stopped seeing me. I was invisible. Her voice steadied. But Mr. Henderson saw me. Every morning for 6 months he stopped, gave me money, bought me coffee, treated me like a person, not a problem to step over. Tears rolled down her face. When I saw his son at the gas meter with equipment, something cleared in my head. I knew something bad was coming and I couldn't let another family be destroyed like mine was. I had to warn him even though people might not believe you. Yes, because he saw me when no one else did? Because it was right. Eleanor looked at Jennifer. I couldn't save my own daughter 30 years ago, but I could save him. Judge Reeves nodded. Thank you, Miss Hayes. Eleanor returned. I squeezed her hand. Mr. Henderson, please approach. I took the oath, sat down. Mr. Henderson, what would you like the court to know before I passed sentence? I looked at Jennifer. She stared straight ahead. I loved her once. We were married 15 years. We raised a son together. I thought I knew her. I took a breath. She manipulated our son, used his addiction as a tool, found a man to build a bomb. Did it all for money, not justice, just money? My voice hardened. I want maximum sentence not from vengeance, but because what she did was unforgivable. She turned our son into a weapon, and she would have killed me without a second thought. 2. I looked at Marcus. He built the device knowing exactly what it was for. He's just as guilty. Judge Reeves reviewed her notes for a long moment. Finally. Jennifer Morgan, please stand. Jennifer stood, her lawyer beside her. Miss Morgan, I have rarely seen such calculated cruelty. You manipulated your own child, a vulnerable young man with addiction, into attempting murder. You enlisted your lover to design a weapon. You planned this over 6 months and showed no remorse. Judge Reeves's voice was steel. You are sentenced to 20 years in state prison for conspiracy to commit murder with no possibility of parole for the first 7 years. Jennifer's face went white, then red. She stood pointing at me. No, this is your fault, Luke, all of it. You destroyed our family. You deserved to die. Ms. Morgan, sit down. Judge Reeves banged her gavel. One more outburst and I add contempt charges. But Jennifer kept screaming as guards restrained her. I should have killed you myself. I should have. They dragged her from the courtroom, her voice echoing down the hall. Judge Reeves banged her gavel again. Order. When silence fell, she turned to Marcus. Mr. Webb, please stand. Marcus stood gray-faced and broken. Mr. Webb, you used your engineering skills to design a device to kill. However, the court notes your cooperation. You were sentenced to 15 years in state prison, with possibility of parole after 7 years contingent on good behavior. Marcus whispered, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Your apology is noted but insufficient. A video screen flickered on. Jason appeared via link from jail. 90 days clean, haircut eyes, clear but ashamed. Mr. Henderson, you planted the device. However, you were manipulated by your mother, suffered from addiction, and your cooperation led to convictions. You are sentenced to 5 years with credit for time served and eligibility for early release to drug treatment after 2 years contingent on continued sobriety. Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Jason's voice cracked. Dad, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I nodded, unable to speak. Judge Reeves banged her gavel. This court is adjourned. 20 years for Jennifer, 15 for Marcus, 5 for Jason. Justice served, but it felt hollow because no sentence could undo what had been done or give me back the family I'd lost. Outside, the fog had lifted slightly. December sun filtered through pale and cold. Reporters swarmed, but Bradley formed a barrier. How do you feel, Mr. Henderson? I stopped, turned to the cameras. Justice was served today. 3 people who tried to kill me are going to prison. But I don't feel vindicated. I feel sad. Sad that my ex-wife chose money over humanity. Sad that my son was manipulated into attempting murder. And grateful that Eleanor Hayes saw me as worth saving. I looked at Eleanor. She's the real hero. Not me, not the justice system. Her A Woman Society had written off saved my life twice. That's what I want people to remember. We walked down the courthouse steps together. Eleanor's arm through mine. Behind us, justice had been served. Ahead, the long road of healing stretched out. But for the first time in 6 weeks, I felt like I could breathe. 6 months after the trial, on a warm June afternoon, I stood in the doorway of Henderson's Books and watched the sunlight pour through the windows. The new location was bigger, better, still in North Beach, but on a corner lot with floor-to-ceiling windows that let the light flood in. The insurance money from the destroyed house combined with years of savings had been enough to lease the space and fill it with books. New shelves made of reclaimed wood. New carpeting in deep burgundy. The same worn leather reading chair I'd salvaged from the old store, patched and rested, sitting in the corner like an old friend. A small cafe area with 2 tables and a coffee machine that Yeppy from across the street had helped me install. A fresh start built on the ashes of the old. Luke, where do you want these poetry collections? I turned. Eleanor stood by the register holding a box of books, her reading glasses perched on her nose. She looked so different from the woman I'd met 7 months ago on Columbus Avenue. Healthier, steadier. Her gray hair was neatly trimmed, cut in a short bob that framed her face. Her clothes a simple blue cardigan, and dark jeans were clean and pressed. The medication had helped. The social worker had helped. But more than anything, having a purpose had helped. She had her own apartment. Now a 1-bedroom place 3 blocks away on Grant Avenue, small but clean with a window that looked out over Chinatown. I'd helped her with the first few months' rent, but she was paying her own way now with her part-time jobs. She worked mornings at the San Francisco Public Library on Larkin Street, reshelving books in the history section. And 3 afternoons a week she worked here helping customers and organizing inventory. Small steps back to the life she'd lost 30 years ago, when the car accident took her husband and daughter. Poetry goes in the alcove by the window, I said, gesturing to the sunny corner, where people can sit and read in the natural light. She smiled that warm smile that still surprised me sometimes. Sarah used to love poetry. Dr. Seuss mostly, one fish, two fish. She'd make me read it over and over until I had it memorized. She talked about her daughter sometimes now, not to ghosts or empty air, but to me, to the grief counselor she'd started seeing twice a month. Real conversations about real memories, no longer trapped in the fog of untreated trauma and mental illness. Healing bit by bit. The bell above the door chimed the cheerful jingle I'd installed last week. A young mother and her daughter stepped inside the little girl, maybe 8 years old, with dark braids and bright, curious eyes. "Welcome to Henderson's Books," Eleanor said warmly, moving toward them with the ease of someone who'd worked in customer service for decades. "Can I help you find anything special today?" The little girl looked up at Eleanor with wide eyes. "Do you have books about magic?" "Real magic, not just tricks. We have lots of books about magic." Eleanor's eyes sparkled. Fantasy magic, historical magic, even some books about the magic of everyday kindness. "What kind are you most interested in all of them?" the girl said enthusiastically. Eleanor laughed, a sound I'd rarely heard 6 months ago, but heard often now. "A girl after my own heart. Let me show you our children's fantasy section." I watched Eleanor lead them toward the back of the store, patient and kind, explaining the difference between Harry Potter and Percy Jackson, while the little girl listened with rapt attention. The mother caught my eye and mouthed, "Thank you," and I nodded. This was what we'd built from the ashes. Not just a bookstore, but a place of kindness, a place where people were seen. On the counter sat today's mail bills, mostly catalogs from book distributors, advertisements for local events. But one envelope stood out, its return address, stamped with the words, San Francisco County Jail. My hands shook slightly as I opened it. "Dear Dad, today marks 6 months clean. 6 months sober, 182 days without drugs. The longest I've been clean since I was 16 years old. My counselor says that's something to be proud of, so I'm trying to be proud. Some days it's hard. Some days I wake up and the first thing I think about is using. But then I think about you, about Eleanor, about what I almost destroyed. And I get out of bed and I go to the carpentry workshop instead. I'm learning to make furniture, Dad. Real furniture. Tables, chairs, bookshelves. Mr. Patterson, the workshop supervisor, says I have a natural talent for it. He's teaching me about joinery and wood grain and how to sand something until it's smooth as glass. It's good work, honest work. When I'm measuring and cutting and fitting pieces together, I feel like maybe I can be useful again. Like maybe I'm not just the guy who tried to kill his father. Like maybe I'm someone who builds things instead of destroying them. I think about what I did every single day. There's not a moment when I don't carry it. When I close my eyes at night, I see that house, your house, the one I grew up in, and I see it exploding. I see what would have happened if Eleanor hadn't warned you. I would have killed you, Dad, my own father, for money I would never have seen anyway, because Mom was lying about everything. My counselor says I have to own it. I have to accept what I did before I can move forward. So I'm owning it. I'm accepting it. And I'm trying to become someone better. They say I might get early release in 2 years if I stay clean, keep working, and continue with counseling. When I get out, if you'll let me, I want to help you rebuild, not just the bookstore, but us. Our relationship, our family. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know what I did is unforgivable. But you taught me something when I was growing up, something I forgot when I started using. People are more than their worst mistakes. I'm asking you to remember that now. For me. I love you, Dad. I'm sorry for everything and I'm trying to be better. Your son, Jason, P.S. I'm making you a bookshelf oak with hand-carved details. It's not finished yet, but when it is, I'll send it to you. Consider it the first step in building something good instead of destroying it. I read the letter twice. Tears blurring the words the second time through. Then I folded it carefully and put it in my shirt pocket right over my heart. Eleanor returned from helping the customer, the little girl now clutching 3 books about wizards and dragons while her mother smiled and pulled out her credit card. "Did you find everything you needed?" I asked, stepping behind the register. "More than we needed." The mother laughed, handing me her card. "But how can you say no when she's this excited about reading? You can't." I agreed, processing the transaction. That's the best kind of problem to have. As I bagged the books, the little girl turned to Eleanor. "You have really kind eyes," she said shilly. Eleanor's face lit up like sunrise. "Thank you, sweetheart. That's the nicest thing anyone said to me all week." She leaned down slightly. "You have a kind heart. I can tell. Never let anyone make you feel like that's a weakness." "Okay." The girl nodded solemnly, clutching her bag of books. After they left, Eleanor came to stand beside me at the counter, both of us watching through the window as the mother and daughter walked down Columbus Avenue hand in hand. "That was a beautiful moment," Eleanor said softly. "Yeah." I pulled out Jason's letter and handed it to her. "He's 6 months clean, learning carpentry, making me a bookshelf. Says he wants to help rebuild when he gets out." Eleanor read the letter slowly, her finger tracing the lines. When she finished, she folded it carefully and handed it back, her eyes bright with tears. "He deserves a second chance, Luke." We all deserve second chances, even after what he did, especially after what he did. She touched my arm gently. Forgiveness isn't saying what he did was okay. It's saying he's more than the worst thing he's ever done. Just like I'm more than a homeless woman who lost her mind for 30 years. Just like you're more than a man whose family tried to kill him. I looked around the bookstore at the sunlight streaming through the windows, painting everything gold. At the shelves full of stories about redemption and hope and second chances. At Eleanor, who'd saved my life twice and become the family I chose instead of the family I was born into. "How did you get so wise?" I asked. 30 years on the streets teaches you things." She smiled. "But mostly, I just learned what you already knew. Kindness matters. It saves people. Sometimes literally." The afternoon sun climbed higher and North Beach hummed with life outside our windows. Tourists and locals, artists and business people. The beautiful chaos of San Francisco in summer. Eleanor. "Yes, Luke? Thank you for everything. For warning me, for saving me, for being here." She squeezed my hand, her grip surprisingly strong. "We saved each other, Luke. That's what family does." And standing there in Henderson's books, surrounded by stories and sunlight and second chances, I finally understood what she meant. Family isn't always the people you're born to. Sometimes it's the people who see you when you're invisible, the people who warn you when danger's coming, the people who stand beside you when everything falls apart. Sometimes family is a homeless woman with a cast iron skillet and a heart big enough to save a stranger's life. If someone told me a year ago that my own family would try to murder me, I would have laughed. If they told me a homeless woman would save my life, I would have thought they were crazy. But here I am, still breathing, still standing. Because I made one simple choice. I saw someone. Eleanor Hayes sat on that corner every day for years. Thousands of people passed her. They looked through her like she was invisible. But I stopped. I gave her $10. I asked her name. I treated her like a human being. And that simple act saved my life. Let me tell you what I learned from nearly being murdered by my own family. The first lesson: kindness creates ripples you'll never see. I gave Eleanor $10 a day for 6 months. That's $100 or $800 total. For that price, she saved my life twice. Once with a warning, once with a cast iron skillet when Marcus tried to kill me. But that's not the point. The point is, I didn't do it for a reward. I did it because Eleanor was a human being who deserved dignity. And that kindness came back in ways I never imagined. Not just saving my life, but teaching me what real friendship looks like. what family actually means when everything else is stripped away. The second lesson, forgiveness is the only way forward. My son tried to kill me, the boy I raised, the child I loved more than anything. He planted a bomb in my house designed to murder me in my sleep. For weeks I drowned in anger. Rage, betrayal. How could he? But anger is poison. It was destroying me faster than any bomb. So I chose forgiveness, not because Jason deserved it. I'm still not sure anyone deserves forgiveness for attempted murder, but because I deserved peace. Forgiveness isn't about them, it's about you. It's refusing to let someone else's worst moment control your future. Jason is 8 months clean now, learning carpentry in prison, building me a bookshelf. When he gets out, we'll try to rebuild not just furniture, but us. We'll never be what we were, but maybe we can build something stronger. The third lesson, God works through broken people. When I first met Eleanor, I didn't think this is an angel God sent to save my life. I thought she was a sad case, someone to help, because it was decent. I was looking for God in the wrong places, in well-dressed people, with clean hands and respectable folks who looked the part. But God doesn't always show up in a suit. Sometimes he shows up in torn clothes, sitting on cardboard, talking to ghosts. Eleanor was my angel. No white robes, no golden wings, just a broken woman who'd lost everything 30 years ago. But when it mattered most, she was the one God used. Not a pastor, not someone respectable, a homeless woman the world had forgotten. That's how God works. Through the broken, through the overlooked, through whoever is willing to be used. So here's my question for you. Who's your Eleanor? Who's the person you walk past every day without really seeing them? The homeless man at the subway? The elderly neighbor with no visitors? The janitor whose name you've never asked? What if that person is meant to change your life? What if you're meant to change theirs? I gave Eleanor $10 and basic respect. She gave me my life. My family betrayed me. My ex-wife tried to kill me. My son planted a bomb. But a stranger, someone with nothing to gain, saved me. If that doesn't make you rethink how you treat people, I don't know what will. Look around, see people, really see them. Because you never know, that person you've been walking past might be the one who saves you. Or you might be the one who saves them. But before you go looking back at my family story, I never imagined I'd survive family betrayal like this. My own wife, my own son, planning my death for money. It's the kind of family betrayal you see in movies, not real life. But it happened to me. Don't be like me. Don't ignore the warning signs. I saw Jennifer's coldness after the divorce, but dismissed it as bitterness. I knew Jason was struggling with addiction, but didn't fight hard enough to get him real help. I thought I had time. I thought family story problems could be fixed later. I almost paid for those mistakes with my life. Here's what I learned from this painful family story. First, trust God even when it doesn't make sense. When Eleanor, a homeless woman most people ignored, warned me not to go home, I could have dismissed her as confused or crazy. But something deep inside someone greater told me to listen. God speaks through the most unexpected people, the one society overlooks. Second, family betrayal is real, but forgiveness is real too. Jason betrayed me in the worst way a son can betray a father. He planted a bomb to kill me. But God taught me something powerful. Holding on to hatred would destroy me more completely than any explosion ever could. Forgiveness didn't excuse what he did. It set me free from the poison of bitterness. Third, the family you choose can be stronger than the family you're born into. Eleanor became my family. God brought this broken, forgotten woman into my life at exactly the right moment. Not just to save me physically, but to teach me what unconditional love really looks like, what real family means. This family story isn't just mine. It's a warning for anyone dealing with family betrayal. It's a lesson about forgiveness. It's proof that even in the darkest moments of betrayal, God offers hope for redemption and healing. So I'm asking you, what's your story? Have you experienced family betrayal? Have you found your Eleanor, someone unexpected who saved you? Has God worked through broken people in your life? Comment below and tell me your story. I read every single one. Share this video with someone who's struggling with family pain. They need to hear this. Subscribe to this channel for more real stories about faith, family, betrayal, forgiveness, and second chances. Because your story matters, your pain matters, your healing matters, and maybe sharing it will save someone else's life the way Eleanor saved mine. God bless you all. And remember, kindness always comes back. Always.